right, our friend Vivek Ramaswamy is writing in the Wall Street Journal how workers can build wealth in the AI era. He says there's a couple of simple solutions, but we're going to get right into that. So welcome back, Vivek. We'd love to have you on. Running for governor of Ohio. I think the guy's a sure shot, just me. Anyway, if every child had $10,000 invested in the S&P 500, every one of them would be a millionaire well before retirement. Totally 100%. How do they get the 10 grand? How do we get this policy in place?
We'll just talk about implementation in 1 second. It gets into a lot of plumbing. But just the big picture is that you think about Gen Z, the major issue, as many have written, is that Gen Z's own value set may not quite match what employers are looking for, which is why many employers are turning to AI to do a lot of their white-collar jobs instead. So the question is, how do we avoid social unrest? How do you have an entire generation that could be, in some sectors, white-collar professions displaced by AI? And my vision is, we got to cut them in. If that results in enhanced productivity for corporate America, then we want that next generation participating in it. So as one thought experiment, right, one heuristic, you could say if every one of those kids starts with $10,000 invested in the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 is more successful, performs better because of quantum computing, because of AI, then every one of them would be millionaires. I would sort of say on math of including S&P 500 performance, multimillionaires by the age of 65. Now, the beauty of this, Larry, is that this is a vision off the national debt. You then don't need, for that entire generation, the entire federal entitlement state that is weighing on the national debt today. You could sunset the old entitlement state and replace it with a new generation of millionaires instead. A lot of people on the left say AI is coming. We need universal basic income. I think that's a bad idea. Instead, I favor universal equity ownership, universal extreme and expanding wealth. That's a far better vision for the future of the country and reviving the American dream in an era of AI.
So the One Big Beautiful Bill has Trump savings accounts. Every newborn gets $1,000 to be invested in the stock market. That's a start.
I think it's a start in the right direction. It's got the right logic to it.
Yep.
But let's talk about turning this into real reality, meaty reality. I think if you're talking about really changing somebody's life over the long run, the compounding, we need to be talking about $10,000 or more at baseline. The other thing is this can't, in my opinion, just be part of entitlement stacking. We have too long of a history in this country of just, hey, just add another entitlement, throw it on. But what I think we can do is use the vision of compounding through equity returns to replace a lot of the old entitlement state.
Is it better than Social Security?
I think it's far superior in its compounding. Now, Social Security could have been invested in the market, and we would have a Social Security surplus today. That was a mistake made back in the 90s and in the early 2000s. We can't change the past. We can change the future by harnessing that same mentality for the next generation. But I'm not talking about the existing generation. I'm talking about the next generation.
They'll have to be working. You know what you're saying?
They've got to work.
You need to work.
You got to work.
Work is important. Work is godly.
Work is key.
And work is key. And then you will just keep adding to your S&P account. It doesn't cost you any money, really.
It automatically just compounds. So people forget this. Albert Einstein called this the most powerful force in the universe.
Yes.
Even if you're compounding at 9%, 10% a year, the S&P is compounded at 13% for the last 5 years, 11% for the last 10 years. Even if you assume less than that, 9 to 10%, you're talking about by the age of 65, even at 10%, it's $2.7 million or so.
No.
It's the magic of exponential
100%.
math. And the difference between, by the way, you see socialism being so popular in America now amongst young people?
Yep.
Well, the reason why is you got to make more young people capitalists. The difference between the wealthy and everybody else is whether or not you own an asset that compounds. So I favor a vision in this country of creating asset ownership, creating a nation of owners, skin in the game, in ways that I hope we cultivate in my home state of Ohio through financial literacy embedded in our schools. I mean, it's unconscionable, Larry, that we don't include basic financial literacy into K through 12 education. I think it is part of your birthright as an American getting a world-class education to A, understand math, and B, understand how the math of compounding works. So if we have a nation of young people who actually own success in the market, they're not spiteful to somebody else's success because they're participating in it with real skin in the game. When you talk about socialists, when you talk about Mamdani in New York or the socialism of yesterday, combat the popularity not just through waxing eloquent about Adam Smith, who you and I love, but instead also by giving them exposure to that upside, that equity participation.
Own a piece of the rock.
That's the answer.
Wealth creation. No, The trouble is a lot of young socialists. I mean, there's a big story in the Wall Street Journal about that, too, how people got to be socialists, Mandami socialists, whatever socialists. You're right there on the outside. But what are you going to do? Let me come back to the AI, okay? I am always a long-term optimist, okay? I'm a Schumpeterian, gales of creative destruction. The new replaces the old. Growing up, to some extent, we lived through the 80s and 90s, which was the information revolution, and everybody was very pessimistic, and it turned out to be fabulous, big job creator. So you've got now a new poll, TIP poll, very good pollster, the TIP people. 54% say AI is mostly going to take away jobs. 54%. Only 17% say that AI is going to create new jobs. And almost half, 45%, say that AI is dangerous and risks unemployment. So you've got this bad attitude without evidence and data yet, but you've got a really bad attitude about artificial intelligence and how it's going to destroy the economy and jobs. What do you do about it?
Well, look, I think that we got to educate people on how to look at the risks of AI, and there's risks that don't even relate to job displacement. There are other risks of AI that we have to consider. You have often many people now in spousal relationships forming emotional relationships with ChatGPT, seeking a divorce. I mean, I know we can laugh about it, but this is happening with increasing frequency. So those are the kinds of risks that I think we ought to talk about. As it relates to worker productivity, though, what AI is doing is it has the potential to enhance the productivity of the economy, which means that every worker and every company will be able to achieve more with actual less. So the promise of this is it could actually expand people's ability to live more fulfilling lives. Yes, by working, but by opening up more time to spend on parenting, to spend on developing their culture, to actually live out their faith, to be able to live a fulfilling life while enhancing productivity, enhancing the size of the pie of the economy. What we need to make sure, though, is people participate in those gains. And this is why people are disillusioned with globalization 1.0. Right? There was a version of this discussion in the 90s about global capitalism and globalization. I think the reason many people felt it fell short of its true promise is there wasn't total participation in the country. If we take that lesson from the 90s, but now come to the next new AI era, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just got to fix the problem by saying, how do we ensure universal participation? And by the way, do it in a way that enhances national pride rather than diminishing it. That's where I'm focused.
We got, when you're back, we'll talk some more about this because it's a great set. I would just tell you, though, every time this country, you know this, history shows every time this country goes through some huge technological breakthrough, yes, there are always some losers, but in the main, it creates wealth, growth, jobs, income. It is fabulous. I mean, the buggy whip makers lost a couple of jobs when Henry Ford discovered the assembly line. And we just went through it in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. I'm just saying, people are too bloody pessimistic about technology.
I'm with you. And I want our Republican Party to just say one thing. Capitalism is the best system known to the history of man to lift people up. I think the Republican Party should rally behind that rather than hide from it.
Somebody once said, I can't remember, he was a longtime broadcaster, free market capitalism is the best path to prosperity. I can't remember who said that. Vivek Ramaswamy, you're the best of the best. Thanks.
Good to see you.
See you soon.